What if I told you that Pan's Labyrinth is just Peter Pan? The faun is Peter, and they're both based on the same Greek deity, Pan.
Staring you right in the face.
You know, some props also to the guy who stepped in to play the Pale Man, Mitch McConnell. So I really appreciate Mitch McConnell for reprising his role as the Pale Man.
He does kind of look McConnell-y, doesn't he?
Welcome back, movie listeners. My name is John, and I'm a filmmaker.
My name's Matt, and I'm a doctor. Me and John have been friends since middle school. And the movie list is a list of 100 movies that John's put together that I have never seen before, and we're watching through them one at a time. This week, we're covering Pan's Labyrinth.
Que la celebra. That's my Pan impression.
Dude, that's good, right? Really good. It's really good.
It's very fun to say. There's certain words that I've been saying that like I can't say in a good Spanish accent, but I can if I do that voice. Like right. I've just been saying bienvenidos that I can really do if I do that accent. So yeah, bienvenidos, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. We're talking Pan's Labyrinth. The 2006, 2007 Guillermo del Toro classic. So our first foreign film on the movie list, technically foreign language film. But yeah, I guess you could call it a foreign film. It was a primarily Spanish crew, a Mexican filmmaker. Matt, did you have trouble with the subtitles?
No, I did not have any trouble. I'm a good reader. At this point in my life.
I just don't picture you as like you're not like branching out there watching a lot of like other countries' movies. Like you haven't seen Saving Private Ryan and Green Mile. I'd figure you're not like branching to other countries.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I pretty much keep it local.
Right. Keep it. You like to shop local with your movies.
Exactly.
Okay. So, but have you seen foreign movies before?
I've seen a few.
Okay.
None of them
Squid Game, maybe.
I saw Life is Beautiful.
Ah, that's a good one. Yeah. Okay. That's a
Need I go on?
Is that it? I mean, does it literally end there?
That's the only one I can think of.
That's fair enough. Well, if you're going to pick one, that's a good one. But yeah, a lot is lost in translation potentially with this movie. When it came out originally, especially in European audiences, it's Pan's Labyrinth across, some Western European and, American releases. But then, in other, specifically Spanish-speaking countries, it was just, it literally translates in English to The Labyrinth of the Faun. And so families thought it was a children's movie. And so as soon as it was announced, they were just packing out theaters and obviously were very concerned probably about 45 minutes into the movie, cut to the dude jamming a bottle into the guy's face to death.
Yeah, gruesome scene.
Brutal scene. So yeah, not exactly a family film. It definitely, on the mom meter, if we're bringing back the mom meter, this is going to be pretty high on the mom meter. I think maybe like a 4 out of 5, maybe not that far, maybe a 3 out of 5. Most moms could handle it, but there's some brutality in it for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you're on the prayer list. This isn't prayer circle activated level.
No. Right. But they're definitely texting their sister saying, I'm concerned about him.
Right. That's
you show this to your mom. So, let's stay off the prayer list, guys. But we should still watch Pan's Labyrinth in secret. And if you haven't seen Pan's Labyrinth, then no worries. Let me catch you up on what it's about. Pan's Labyrinth is a dark fantasy set in post-Civil War Spain in 1944. The story follows Ophelia, a young girl who moves with her pregnant mother to a remote military outpost commanded by her cruel new stepfather, Captain Vidal. As violence from the real world closes in around her, Ophelia discovers a mysterious labyrinth and meets a strange magical being who tells her she may be the long-lost princess of an underground kingdom. To prove it, she must complete a series of dangerous tasks. The film blends fairy tale imagination with the brutality of war, creating a story about innocence, resistance, and escape. Man, tragic story. Matthew, tell me what your first Bienvenidos was of this movie.
My first welcome.
Yes.
Well, I think we should start by saying that our clothes kind of match on today's episode.
That's true. This was not planned.
Unintentional.
No, but we were close to Easter, so we're kind of rocking Easter colors.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, first watch, I found this movie to be absolutely captivating. So, most of the time when I'm watching through these movies, I have like a whole page of notes by the time I get to the end. And this one, I got to the end, I was like, oh no, I should have been taking notes this whole time. Just because I was like so engaged with the story. And I think maybe the subtitles
Yeah, you had to
helped
read
a
the
little with that
movie.
because like I had to keep reading everything that was going on too. I didn't have a lot of time to be jotting stuff down. This is another movie kind of like Birdman where what's happening is sort of ambiguous.
Mm.
And in Birdman, I found that ambiguity pretty distracting. If you go back and watch that episode, I had some interesting theories on it.
Aliens were involved. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. So, but in Pan's Labyrinth, it seemed like it fit. And I know that part of that is because this was sort of designed with a magical realism sort of motif, which I think is actually sort of a Latin American way of storytelling, where you have magical elements that are sort of seamlessly threaded into your day-to-day stuff. And so, through the eyes of Ophelia, we get to see this sort of almost like a second movie in kind of in parallel with what's going on in this kind of wartime scenario, where we're kind of depends on how you look at the movie, but sort of the real world and then kind of the fantasy world, the magical world that she's living in.
Right.
Even though there's such a weird juxtaposition, it doesn't seem jarring. Whereas in a movie like Birdman, it was confusing to me, and maybe it wasn't to most people, but to me it was. And in this movie, I didn't have that same issue.
Yeah, I mean, a lot. I mean, obviously, Del Toro loves to do that contrast. Another thing that you see a lot in Del Toro movies is sort of taking fantastical, fantasy, fairy tale type stuff and putting twists on it. Obviously, he did Hellboy. It's another thing he's famous for. Won his Oscar for Shape of Water, which is basically just like sexy mermaid, right? So he loves to take a traditional story and put his own twist to it. And so this movie is one of those.
Right?
Merman. But yeah, this was a continuance of that, right? That even in this movie, you see all kinds of parallels of other fairy tales, right? The toad right down in the tree. She goes and sits down in the tree. She sees the toad that could be, kissing the princess and the frog, right? It's literally a princess and a frog. The tree itself is going down. Is imagery of Alice in Wonderland. The pale man is eating the things kind of like an ogre. At the very end, she has the red shoes. It's kind of like the ruby slippers from Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. And so you see a lot of obvious fairy tale imagery in here. But there's one to me that's just so obvious that all these years I can't believe how many times I've seen this, I haven't missed it. And so as I'm watching it, it occurred to me, Matt, what if I told you that Pan's Labyrinth is just Peter Pan? Right? Follow me on
Staring
this.
you right in the face.
It's literally right there. So Ophelia is Wendy, right? So like Wendy, Ophelia loves her mother, but she's afraid of growing up because of what it means.
I don't want to grow up.
They're both young girls that are having to kind of play mother to their baby brothers. They're both lured into this magical realm by this mystical trickster. They both are, potentially going there to become royalty in this underworld / Neverland. The villain, Captain Vidal, is Captain Hook, right? He's this ruthless uniformed captain obsessed with a ticking clock, trying to impose his will on his rigid order on a wild world. And who is the captain hunting? This ragtag group of rebels, right? Out in the woods. They are the Lost Boys, hiding in the woods, using the terrain to fight this guerrilla war that, seems like it could go on forever. They actually, both of the movies, Peter Pan and this one, feature this big hollowed out tree that Wendy has to actually crawl into to kind of move the story forward and find the magic inside. There are tiny little winged fairies that are their loyal guides, guiding them through the whole thing. Even a little bit of jealousy maybe there when the fairy whispers secrets into Pan's ear. And so, I mean, the underworld is Neverland, essentially, and in this, comparison. And so the faun is Peter. And they're both based on the same Greek deity, Pan. They are both the Pan, right? This chaotic trickster whose main goal is to lure a young girl from her human family. And the thing is, like you were saying, it's a kind of a juxtaposition of you're not sure of whether it's real or which side you're kind of taking on this. When you look at it that way, the ending changes. Because in the end of this one, spoiler alert, she dies. And if you look at it through the Pan lens, then at the end, you get what she and what Pan wants. She never has to grow up. The underworld is Neverland. She's our Wendy, and the faun is Peter Pan. Pan's Labyrinth.
Interesting.
I feel like it was just
That's
sitting
really
us,
interesting.
it was staring us right in the face after all this time, and we just, I don't know.
I mean, that's a lot of similarities. You got that right.
Yeah.
And, I guess to the fairies point, like the fairies really only communicate in a way that can be understood by Pan himself.
Exactly.
Or the faun in this story.
Right.
Like Tinkerbell was able to communicate with Peter Pan, but
Right.
to everybody else, she's just like, like a jingling thing.
Right.
You know, like,
Yeah.
and the fairies can't talk to Ophelia either. They just kind of like weave her along.
Right.
That's
and they're kind of
interesting.
mischievous a little bit, and they're almost like angry at her. They like to scold her, just like Tinkerbell. I just feel like there's a lot of similarities there.
That's really good.
But yeah, I mean,
insightful.
again, going back to the beginning, that's what Del Toro loves to do. I think he just loves to take these fairy tales and kind of make them dark. But I don't think he looks at it as dark, right? I mentioned Shape of Water earlier. When he gave his Oscar speech, he talks about how he loves monsters because he sees that monsters are the patron saint of the weird like us. They point to the weirdness and the imperfections in all of us that make us special and make us great. And so not Benicio, Guillermo del Toro movie is always kind of trademarked by that weird, grotesque monster that is somehow kind of lovable, and you're scared of them and you're also intrigued by them at the same time, and he does it like nobody else.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
One thing I learned, I did see that, his speech where he mentioned that, but one thing I learned about this that I thought was pretty fascinating, when I was watching the movie, I was listening to the faun, and the faun makes all these like animalistic sort of noises. I just got curious, like how did they do that? Because like he's using his regular speech, but there's like these growls and grumbles that kind of overlie all of that.
Yo he tenido tantos nombres viejos que solo pueden pronunciar el viento.
And I learned that that's actually all those sounds were made by Guillermo del Toro himself.
No way.
So he made those noises.
Oh, that's so cool. I didn't know that.
I thought they were like, I assumed it was gonna be like, wolves growling or something that they superimposed, but no, it's him. It's Guillermo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he obviously is extremely involved in his movies. From I watched a documentary with talking about the makeup design and the character design and those people, incredibly talented people who put this together, and how extremely involved he was in that, to down to tiny little details. And they would finish a character build out and he would just scrap everything and say, let's pull from this and pull from this. But all the way down to, if we're talking details, he insisted on actually writing the English subtitles for this movie because he did not want them to screw up the translation. So he said,
Wow.
no, I'll do it myself. So he actually wrote the English subtitles for Pan's
Wow.
Labyrinth. And so he
That's
wasn't messing
commitment.
around. Yeah.
Yeah. We kind of breezed over it before, like when Ophelia goes down into that tree to see the frog.
Yep.
I know you point out that's kind of similar to that, so like the princess and the frog motif. For whatever reason, I think it's just how the creature looked and like the muddy setting that they're in. It reminded me so much of the scene in the Neverending Story,
Uh-huh.
where Atreyu talks to that turtle that keeps sneezing.
Right.
Because I think at that point in the movie, they're in that sort of like mud pit of despair, and he's going to go talk to her to get some advice about how to stop the nothing, and she can't help him. But I don't know, the way that the creature looked even reminded me of how the turtle looked.
Yeah.
Is I think it looked like it was mostly practical effects that they were using, except for when like the tongue shot out and stuff.
Right. Yeah. A funny story on that scene is they had, again, I'll go into later, maybe like some of the behind the scenes filmmaking, how this movie came about, but they had challenges, several challenges throughout the filmmaking. And one of the things was that scene actually was supposed to sort of be like a fight dance between her and the frog. And it was in this big, beautiful, like underground auditorium, like this tree auditorium that had a big like chandelier made of like, embers and like it. And it just didn't work, and it was actually supposed to be mostly animatronic, the frog kinda bouncing back and forth, and it was too heavy. They couldn't make it move,
Hmm.
and so they're like, "Alright, we're gonna have to do 50-50 of 50 practical, 50, CG of any of these movements that we can't do." So actually the scene in which that takes place was not originally, written that way. That's not where it was supposed to take place. They just had to kind of pivot quickly and say, "This is what we have. This looks good. It makes sense because he's kind of blocking her way. We'll do it, like this." And so
Hmm.
sometimes that's just how filmmaking is.
Right.
Even if it's not necessarily, I wouldn't. And this is a $19 million budget. I wouldn't call it necessarily indie, but it's they had challenges nonetheless.
I thought it was great. I
Yeah.
thought the way that whole scene looked, even though it was probably not what they intended,
Right.
but I thought it was awesome. I loved
Yeah.
it.
Yes. There are no accidents. Happy little accidents that happen.
I wondered why your
Um,
voice was getting so weird. You're yeah,
I'll just
yeah,
say
yeah.
happy little accident. Um, but yeah, I mean, while we're on the matter, really, Pan's Labyrinth almost didn't happen.
Hmm.
First off, literally, Guillermo del Toro is famous for having these notebooks that are just full of notes and ideas and story structure and drawings. And he had been working on this movie since like 1997. So a
Hmm.
long time he had this idea in his head that he'd been working on. So he had this notebook full of hundreds of pages of ideas. And he was in New York taking some meetings, and he left the notebook in a taxi. And he's just thinking like, that's it. It's not on the internet. It's not on a computer. It's gone. The movie is gone. It's not going to happen now. And the taxi driver found it, went back to the hotel he was staying at, tracked him down, and gave it to him
Wow.
and said, "Here you go. You left this." And apparently, he gave the guy like a $900, tip for it. And he said at that moment, he took it as a sign from God. I have to make this movie. It's a sign I
Wow.
have to do it now. So he was on a mission from that point to do it. And there were some studios actually that were interested in giving him major budgets because this was after Hellboy, right? So he was already an established commercial Blade 2, Hellboy. He was an established commercial director at this point. And they were ready to go, but he wanted to do it in Spanish. And they
Hmm.
said, yeah, well, let's do it in English and let's bring in some name actors. He's like, no, I wanted to do it this way. So they said, okay, sorry, we're not interested. So he raised the money himself. He did a co-production out of a group in Mexico. Him with Alfonso Cuarón, who's another fantastic Mexican filmmaker, did Gravity, did Children of Men, which is on the list. And they put their own money up to make this happen. And did a few different co-productions in Mexico, and made this movie, come to light. But again, like I was saying, it was not without its challenges. There were several times that really they were thinking we may not be able to, continue production, and then they would figure out another way, continue to go forward. And so with the $19 million budget, ended up, grossing 83 million worldwide. And
Holy smokes.
and is on really the kind of the consensus, one of the best movies of all time when you add up IMDb and Letterboxd and Metacritic and all those. It's at least probably top 50 movies of all time when you collaborate all of those together.
Gracious. I didn't
Yeah.
realize
Yeah.
it made. I mean, I remember when it came out and
Mhm.
not seeing it at the time,
Right.
because that's a prerequisite to being on our list.
Exactly. And it's probably not going to be like your thing anyway, but
Yeah, but
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I remember it making a splash when it came out, but I don't know. I guess the world wasn't so online at the time, so
Yeah.
I didn't see any. Like, I had no idea what this movie was.
Right.
Really, like I knew it had some creatures in it, and that's all I knew. So
Right.
this was a total surprise to me, like how the story went, how it ended. I
Right.
didn't even know it was all in Spanish.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it got some love at the Academy. It won an Oscar for Best Cinematography, Art Direction, Best Makeup, obviously. The crazy thing to me, it did not win Best Foreign Film, which that blows my mind. Like, apparently a movie called The Lives of Others won that year, which I've never seen that movie, even heard of it, but like that movie better be freaking good. If like a consensus top 50 all time movie, didn't get it, then
right,
I don't know what did. But definitely deserving of those other three categories.
yeah. I mean, very very impressive in that front. Like, I guess it's hard to know when you're watching it, and I guess this is actually a testament to how good the makeup is. It's hard to know what's makeup and what's not. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like
right.
what's practical effects and what's done with makeup and costumes and
Yeah,
what's digital. Like,
right,
you can't really tell.
right. Yeah. Well, quite a bit of it is practical. And I mean, obviously he's known for that. He's known for costumes, incredible costumes and makeup and, special effects makeup. Um, and really while we're on the matter, a lot of that were not for Doug Jones. So Doug Jones, who, if you guys don't know who Doug Jones is, he's probably the most famous guy that you've never seen, but you know who he is. You just don't know that you know. Like we mentioned, he plays two of the characters. He plays the fawn, and he plays, the pale man,
Pale
the guy
man.
with the eyes. Shape of Water. He plays the merman in that. He plays Sapien in Hellboy. He's just in so many, really any of those like super physical type characters that are going to be, a lot of special effects makeup, a lot of prosthetics and stuff over the last, really probably the last 30, 40 years. He's been a part of. The dude is a legend and doesn't get enough credit, I feel.
Right. And also more recently, he's the Baron Afanas in What We Do in the Shadows, which is hilarious, and he's fantastic in it.
He is so good at that. I forgot about that one. That's good. While we're on it, by the way, fun behind the scenes story with it is when he eats the head. He's the pale man, and he eats the head off of the
Fairy.
fairies. Basically, those were just condoms full of fake blood that he had to like bite into, and that's what creates that thing. He was having a hard time. I mean, obviously, Doug Jones was the only member of the crew who spoke only English. It was an all Spanish crew. And Guillermo del Toro actually was the only one who was bilingual on set. So Doug Jones had to learn his lines in Spanish so that he could actually deliver the lines. Now, in the movie, he's not the one actually delivering the lines for the fawn. They brought in a voice actor for that, but he still had to actually move his mouth, to actually do the
Right.
lines and work off the actress who plays Ophelia. And so he not only had to memorize his lines in Spanish, he had to memorize her lines in Spanish so that he understands what she's saying. And so, I mean, not only did he just go through the rigorous, 4, 5, 6-hour makeup jobs every day, coming in at 3 a.m. to be ready for a 8 a.m. Call time, and then has to learn Spanish, and the guy deserves a lot of credit.
So speaking of Doug Jones, the Pale Man is probably the single most captivating scene in the whole movie, where you have this monster, and the way that they introduce him, like they tell you this story about him before you go down into the Pale Man's lair, which I
Right.
thought was awesome. So the fawn introduces him, and he's like, the thing that lives through this door, it's not human.
Tened cuidado, Loquita. No es humano.
And just the way that he says it is,
Yeah.
I love the emphasis he puts on it. It just makes it so creepy. And she goes in there. The Pale Man's sitting at the table, seemingly asleep or unactivated or something, powered down, chilling. His eyes are on a plate. And the one rule, she's not supposed to eat anything.
Right.
And as she's looking around the room, the writing's kind of on the walls of what's going to happen, very literally. Like there's pictures of him eating babies, where he would have fit right in on the Snowpiercer.
I know that babies taste best.
Dude, Kim and Chris Evans would have a lot to talk about.
A lot. It's
if they can speak Spanish.
Yes. I mean, we don't know that the Pale Man speaks Spanish.
That's true.
I mean, technically, we know that he only speaks English.
That's a good point.
But so he puts the girl eats the grapes, well, she's not supposed to eat anything, and that wakes up the Pale Man. The second that grape goes in her mouth, his fingers start to twitch, and he starts looking for his eyeballs to put into his hands, and this whole thing. She gets the knife. She picks a door that the fairies were telling her not to pick, which we don't really get to learn what that was about. But she had an intuition about it. But then intro to like the most intense getaway sequence where she's got a piece of chalk and a chair and a dream, and she's got to get out of here, and this monster's chasing her down. Now, lucky for her, this monster always skips leg day. You gotta look at those chicken legs. So if he hadn't skipped leg day, she wouldn't have made it out.
That's a good point.
I mean, why she chose to do it on the ceiling, also a little perplexing. Maybe because she figured he wouldn't be able to climb up there and get through as easy.
Right.
But then she had to, climb up, and then her legs are dangling down, and just your heart is just boom, boom. Like, I watched this in bed, and like I feel my bed shaking from my heartbeat as I'm watching this.
You probably need to work on your cardio a little bit.
Just a great scene.
Yeah. And I think we also, like, we would be remiss if we're not giving some some props also to the guy who stepped in to play the Pale Man, Mitch McConnell. So I really appreciate Mitch McConnell for reprising his role as the Pale Man.
He does kind of look McConnell-y, doesn't he?
He looks a lot like Mitch McConnell, especially the chin fat kind of hanging around.
Yeah.
Give it so really taking your break from whatever you're doing up at Capitol Hill to go sit there and stare at some food.
I guess they both kind of freeze up from time to time.
That's what was happening. They trade. They switch off. So whenever Mitch McConnell freezes, it's because somebody ate some of his food. He's like, hang on 1 second. That's crazy. Oh man,
that was too mean.
Yeah, he probably deserves it. But yeah, it's some really interesting imagery in that scene. Like as I was looking into, the movie starts with introducing I think it was December of 1944, right? So it's late 1944, which you guys know if you've watched. I'm a big history buff. I love any of the kind of history or religion tie-ins to thing, and this movie is chock full of it. So we're gonna have fun with this one. 1944 was the tail end of the Spanish Civil War. So Franco moved in and essentially took over as the fascist leader of Spain after a 5 or 6 year brutal civil war that the Spaniards had. And this is basically the end of it. The Republicans had lost. The fascists had taken control of Spain, and this was basically towards the point where they were just moving them completely out, starving them off, and they were all dying. So that's kind of where we catch our rebels here in this movie. So there's the dinner scene where they're talking, with the leaders in the area, and they're talking about, how to handle rations. There's a Catholic priest there who mentions, oh, well, their souls are already saved, so I don't care what happens to their body. So this actually ties into something that Guillermo del Toro has dealt with personally. He grew up Catholic, and he said that he actually met some Spanish refugees who had come when he was a child, who'd come to Mexico, fled from Spain. And he had heard stories about not only the horrors of the fascism, but essentially how the Catholic Church there was complicit in what was going on. And so he always grew up with kind of a mixed anger, mixed feeling towards the Catholic Church, specifically in Spain. So I think part of this movie is him getting that out, getting that frustration out, making sure that we don't forget about this war that's happened. That's kind of the forgotten Civil War because it was so close to World War II. Nobody thinks of, European fascism in the 40s. They think Hitler, right? They think Mussolini. They don't think Franco. And so he's getting a little bit of his frustration out here, as well as, pointing to some specific things that anger him. And then the parallels that are interesting would be you have the dinner scene where they're talking there, and then the next dinner scene with the Pale Man, right? So I think the Pale Man, he's actually talked about that is parallels to the Catholic Church, right? The imageries of the paintings on the wall or kind of on the ceiling. Actually, the eyeballs on the silver platter is a direct reference to Saint Lucy, who's the patron saint of the blind and who famously has a silver platter with 2 eyeballs, just like the Pale Man. And then if you have Ophelia kind of eating the forbidden fruit, kind of parallels to Eve. And then the historical side of it, if we're going to kind of go dark here, in this time period, in the 40s, 44, late 44 into 45, people were fleeing the country, and they were fleeing into France. The Nazis had already taken over, and so these Spanish refugees were captured. They didn't know what to do with them. They didn't want them to go back to Spain because Franco said they're no longer Spaniards. I don't claim them. And so Hitler sent them to concentration camps. So if you see in the movie, the piles of the shoes, which is, reminiscence of obviously any Holocaust imagery. When you see the piles of shoes, that's what you're going to see.
Yeah.
So it's probably a forgotten group in the Holocaust of the Spaniards who, were actually tattooed or marked with blue triangles, for basically, which is signifying they are people with no nation. And so the piles of shoes are sort of a direct historical connection to something that actually happened in Spain.
Right. I was actually going to bring up the shoes because it does evoke that very specifically.
Yep.
Like even the color and the style of shoe that they use sort of brings that to mind.
Right.
So it felt deliberate when you watch the movie.
100%. I mean, you could see it that maybe it's just multiple children had been there multiple times, but I'm like, that many kids are eating fruit. It's like they all got trapped. And then they were all too slow for Mitch McConnell chasing them down.
There was some contamination in a chalk factory. A bunch of kids it got recalled.
Speaking of that, I don't know if you noticed this, but after the Pale Man chases her and she escapes, did you notice that a piece of the chalk falls back down into the room? Which means the Pale Man could technically, with his creepy long fingers, pick that up, use one of his eyeballs to look and follow them out into the world. So good luck sleeping with that thought.
Yeah, I was wondering how she could fall asleep after that.
Immediately.
She just pops up to the ground, closes it, and like, all right, time for some sleep.
Especially given the fact that, like, the fawn, who's the most horrifying figure of all time, could just pop out at any time.
Yeah.
Bienvenidos. Just like she's just sleeping and he's like, hey. I don't know why that's so fun to me. Bienvenidos. Oh man.
Yeah. So, along the fantastical lines, let's talk about fairies for a minute. So, in this world, fairies come in two varieties. So you have your typical like Tinkerbell kind of fairy.
Yep.
And then you have the stick bug from hell. those are the two forms it takes.
That's true.
Ophelia fortunately recognizes them as fairies immediately, even in their stick bug from hell format.
Right.
So she's like, "Hey, are you a fairy?" and points to a picture that does not look like what the thing is at all. And then it morphs into that type of fairy.
Right.
When she shows the fairy, the diagram in the book of what a fairy is supposed to look like, and that it transforms into that type of fairy, and then it starts kind of beckoning her to go with it out into the woods where she goes into the labyrinth and meets the fawn. That kind of reminds me, as a parent, you just can't be prepared for everything. There are some situations you just can't plan for that.
It reminds me of that meme of the kid who's covered in dirt. Who's like, come on, follow. Have you seen this one? Come on, follow me. I gotta show you something. He goes, it's a surprise. And he's just fully covered in dirt. And something about this kid is very creepy.
Come over.
Where are we going?
Oh, around. It's a surprise.
And yeah, while we're talking about the fairies and the fawns being creepy, you want to hear the creepiest thing, like literally ever?
Yes.
One of the reasons that Del Toro wanted to make this movie is because when he was a child, he had a reoccurring dream that he would wake up and at midnight on the spot, he would look at the grandfather clock and a fawn would step out from the grandfather clock and stare at him and then go back. He said he had that same dream or whatever vivid dream for like weeks at a time when he was a child. And that's why he wanted to make this movie. And dude, if that's where the idea of Pan, like the vision of Pan in this movie, the fawn, comes from, no bienvenidos for me. No bienvenidos. Bienvenido. Bienvenido. I don't know, man. I don't want any
very
of that.
creepy. Very creepy.
I'm not gonna be able to sleep tonight. Just think of that. Like,
neither am I.
Could there be a worse like sleep paralysis demon than that thing?
Probably not.
No.
And even with and within the confines of this story, the last step that Ophelia is supposed to do is provide the blood of the innocent.
Yeah.
So, like, if that's ever a step in your contract, you walk away.
When he comes up, she brings the baby, and he just has the most obvious dagger, just like swirling around. She's like, "What is that?" He goes, "Oh, it is nothing. Don't worry about this. A giant sword I have."
I'm just gonna be a little prick.
Then why do you have a sword? Just bring a needle. Why do you
a
need
needle
that?
would have been far less threatening.
Why did you have to show up with the friggin' like sword of truth to like?
Well, it is the sword that she got from the Pale Man. It's the same little dagger she pulled. Yeah, she pulled it out of the little door.
How did he end up with it? Did she give it to him?
She gave it to him. Yeah, right afterwards.
Okay.
It was in that little box. And,
I missed that.
Like the box had the fairy and the
Sorry,
dagger
I was
in it.
distracted by freaking Mitch McConnell chasing her down with eyeball hands.
Yeah. He also skipped face day.
In eyeball day. I like how his face was just like it was just a stingray. His face was literally just a stingray, just a wrinkly. It was like a stingray if it had like Ozempic. It was like Ozempic stingray.
Yeah. I've always said a human face on Ozempic without eyes, it looks like a stingray. It's one of my famous sayings.
That's right. I believe that's in their terms and conditions if you really read them. That stingray face is possible. Shout out
It could
Ozempic,
happen.
not a sponsor.
It
Probably
could
won't ever
happen
be
to
a
you.
sponsor. Bienvenidos. Hey, while we're talking about Bienvenidos, one interesting fact about that actually. So the Captain Vidal, right, who's obviously like this fascist chauvinist type character, all he cares about is his son. So when he greets the girls when they first arrive, so in Spanish, when you greet two women or a group of women, you say bienvenidas, right? But when he greets them, the two girls, he says bienvenidos, which means that he is only talking to his son, essentially, that the respect is given to his unborn son, who is not even there.
They don't even know as a boy either.
But he's certain. He's certain. And technically, he was right. I mean, like
he was right.
He
nailed
was
it.
right. He nailed it. But yeah, not a super lovable character, old Captain Vidal.
No, he's the villain of the piece for sure.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I'd rather have the pale man.
Yeah.
And that freaking guy.
Right.
I mean, geez. I mean, yeah, you say he's obsessed with his son. It's a little, I think, more than that. It is his son, but I think it's his legacy, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And you get to see that with the watch as well, because he talks about how the watch came from his father to him, and it's going to go to his son too.
Right.
And this brings me to maybe my favorite line in the whole movie, which is, "He won't even know your name," which is just cold as ice.
Yeah.
When he comes out of the labyrinth, he's like, "Hey, just tell my son that this is who I was. Give him this watch." And she says, "He won't even know your name."
Yep.
Y ahora murió su padre. Decirle que yo.
Ni siquiera sabrá tu nombre.
Just awesome the way that.
I mean, and
included.
Before that, and he had like the whole Joker slice. So Mercedes, who was the kind of the handmaiden that had been helping the rebels, get them supplies, get them medicine, get them penicillin, I think, antibiotics, some sort of antibiotics to them, and then ends up getting caught. But then one final kind of like justice for that guy was the stab scene. She puts it in his lip. Heath Ledger Joker's him. Why so serious?
Yeah.
And then and then he like kind of sews it back with a hook. Captain Hook.
Oh, good point.
See?
Look at you. Oh, wow. And he does like to smash people's hands. You learned that too.
Mm-hmm. And their faces with bottles
of rum. It's not rum, but those stitches. He did that little weird. So I will give him a pass on it because he's not a doctor. But he did it as a continuous, which I think is fine. But his first knot, he just made like a big knot on the string and like used that.
I was wondering about that. I was wondering, is that how you
don't do it? That
you
way.
just tie a knot? Like,
no, what you would do is you would basically make up your first little loop, and then you tie a knot, so you have a really tight knot and the thread still coming off of it. And then you just continue to stitch that way, and you make another little knot on the other end if you're doing a continuous stitch like he did. Yeah. But you have to like put it through and then tie the knot before you would keep proceeding. Right. He just made like a big wad and then used that to like.
When he immediately drank the liquor after, was he trying to clean it or was he just dumb?
I think he was trying to kill the pain. Okay. But then he took another shot of it afterward. After it like leaked out and hurt him, he does it again. Yeah. Not a cool move. And then he ends up taking a bunch of drugs that Ophelia gave him. And he seemed to do fine with it, honestly.
It really just barely affected him.
He was a little woozy.
Honestly, the amount he had been drinking, I think he was prepared for it.
The alcohol somehow made him stronger.
Yeah. His obsession with time. Do you notice that his office that he's in, wherever that area is basically just looks like a big giant clock that he's inside of? Like on the wide shot as it comes in, it just looks like he's essentially inside of a clock. And so
it did look very like industrial.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the theme of time with him as a character, with Ophelia kind of being afraid of womanhood. You know, her mom is not exactly like pitching it very great to her. She's
No.
like, this guy, I just saw this guy kill somebody with a bottle. And she's like, you'll understand when you're older. It's like, why?
It's
I don't
like,
want that, man.
I never had shoes like this. Dude, this guy's killing everyone.
I saw him
Everybody.
torture our friend. Yes, but the shoes.
I mean, now, granted, I can't really speak to this, but I think the mom maybe put her daughter in a bad situation.
Yeah, mom's not great. Mom is not a great character in this.
Yeah.
Hard to like anything about her. She even kills the mandrake. Like, she has to take all this time with this milk. She's giving it a milk bath. There's blood involved. And then the mom just immediately throws it away in the fire.
I thought Vidal threw it in the fire, didn't he?
No, the mom did. He found it, and then the mom threw it in the fire. And then, it's like screaming
right
in the fire. That's so mean. Why would they do that? Also, if Harry Potter led us to believe that would be like excruciating to you.
Yeah, if it screamed.
So, come on, JK. Get your facts right.
That's Rowling.
Rowling, not Simmons. I would love to see Del Toro take a crack at a Harry Potter, any kind of Harry Potter IP.
That would be fascinating.
That would be awesome.
The creatures, dude.
Anything. Like, literally, if you want to do like your own side story, I mean, honestly, like any like the magical creature stuff. Can you imagine a magical creatures movie directed by Del Toro?
That would be sick.
Bro. See, this is why they need me there. They need me in to make those decisions. Put a chick in it and make it lame. That's what they're doing in the meantime. All right. So every movie, we go over some realistic and some unrealistic stuff. So we went over some realistic stuff in here. Matt, give me an oh yeah, right. What was an unrealistic moment here in this movie?
Right. So for me, it's going to be Mercedes' escape. So she starts running. There's several guards behind her. She doesn't have a big head start. And rather than just run up and catch her, which they could easily do.
Right.
They're like, get the horses. And then they get horses, and they still take quite a long time to catch up to her. Like, how? She's as fast as an actual Mercedes. The fastest. You just the trees are zipping by. They finally catch up to her on the horses after it's way too long. They would have caught up to her instantaneously.
Yep.
On horses.
Yep.
But I digress. So that's my oh yeah, right. Mercedes, a little too quick.
Fair. My oh yeah, right is food related. When they go down in the Pale Man's lair, right? He's sitting there.
Perfectly plausible.
He has this chalk, right? He has this feast in front of him. And she very unnecessarily picks up the platter to, I guess, more closely observe the eyeballs. I feel like that's something that can be seen from a distance, right? But if that guy has eyeballs on a plate and there's this food that's been sitting here for God knows how long, right? Definitely filled with formaldehyde and all kinds of preservatives in there, right? You want to eat that food? Right?
Yeah.
And then let's just say magic is involved, okay? And that it's wonderful food and it smells great and there's a spell that keeps it fresh, right? There's like turkey and like pies and like delicious hams. She goes for a grape. The freaking fawn guy just said, if you eat the food, you will surely die. Like, he just told her she would die. You're going to risk it all for a freaking grape?
Yeah, the most ominous warning I've ever heard. He's like, don't eat a morsel. Your life depends on it. The thing that lives down there is not human.
Yeah, and he's sitting right there. It's not like he's hiding and you're like, oh, maybe he'll come out. He's like 4 feet away from you.
And there's pictures of him eating babies. Right behind him.
Yeah, Ophelia had a pretty big lapse of judgment on that one.
Unbelievable.
So I'm gonna go say on the formaldehyde grapes. Oh yeah, right on that one.
That's a good one.
not feeling that. But I mean, maybe she knows something that we don't know. If anything, Del Toro does well. He does this kind of childlikeness that is somehow scary to us, magical, and there's a lot of really good lessons. In fact, one of the quotes he had said when he was making this was, "Children are ambassadors of a higher culture. We should learn from them rather than try and shape them." So I think in this movie, he is, in the debate of was it real? Was it not real? I think the point he's making in all of this is that she is seeing something at a deeper level than we are. We see war and we see fascism and Republican and fighting and food and all these things, and she sees magical worlds and, Pale Man and Mitch McConnell. So she sees things at a deeper level than we do.
Both
All
seeing
right, Matt.
Republican.
That's true, Republican. I think he's on the wrong side, but he's secretly part of the rebellion. Can you imagine that?
The Pale
If they're
Man?
like, the Pale Man. Can you imagine if he's coming out and he's like, all right, 2028, Pale Man for president.
No more food, dude.
Hashtag Pale Man for president. All right. Make the underworld great again. Okay. Matt, let's hear your ratings on this one. we did made it more political than we usually do.
we made it political without saying anything political, just referencing politicians. All right. So for story, for me, I give it a 3. I guess because I don't think that the story is necessarily the most important part, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. I think it's
Yeah.
the subtext in this one that matters.
Yep.
It's the human element. It's that. I don't think like the setting and the plot about the war and all that's kind of ancillary. This world that Ophelia is in, I don't think that really matters. I think it's the story is just there to facilitate the human piece of it.
Sure.
Rewatchability, I give it a 4. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Fun, I gave it a 6. Just because, like, especially like the Pale Man sequence, the everything about the fawn is really fun. The fairies, all that stuff is quite entertaining. And then actually, a lot of the stuff with the rebels, I think was pretty fun.
Mhm.
Like they're just this ragtag crew, and like they're getting snuck penicillin in these little ampules and having to figure out how to amputate stuff with just a shot of whiskey. And that first saw, that guy saw it like he's done it a million times, dude.
Mm.
The amount of penicillin, never mind.
Do it. Digress. That's fine.
So the amount of penicillin as it's currently formulated, we would give you, depending on the infection, probably, like for strep, we do like a one and done of a high units of a certain type of penicillin. If you're taking like amoxicillin by mouth, it's twice a day for however many days you need for that particular type of infection. That bag of ampules, they probably had enough to treat like, I don't know, 2-3 guys. And until they had like necrotizing fasciitis, which is probably what this guy had, or neck fash, as we like to call it. That
Love
leg
neck
was
fash.
gangrenous. So,
Gangrene gang.
yeah. So, anyways, hard to get ahead of gangrene. Sometimes you just gotta start hacking away. So, anyhow, emotional impact. I gave this one a 6 on emotional impact. 'Cause this is really an emotion-driven movie. Didn't make me cry. I think that's because of, I guess, kind of the escapist element. It helped me escape too.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that she in the scene where she dies, there's a lot of really interesting stuff about that scene. Like the color palette that they use, it's very muted except for her blood, which is bright red. And it's, in her life, she lost everything of value.
Yeah.
Her mother, she lost her freedom, now she's left with Vidal, and then Vidal takes her brother, which is the last thing that she cared about, and shot her, obviously. So the only bright thing was her escape, which is basically through death, and then her blood, the blood of her being the innocent, dripping into the water. It's just I think the way that Guillermo del Toro illustrated that was really beautiful if you take the time to take it in.
Yeah.
And it also, there's some symbolism with Ophelia, like the story of Ophelia in Hamlet, where Ophelia kind of loses everything. She gets rejected by Hamlet, who tells her to get thee to a nunnery, which is a really funny thing to say.
Get roasted. Get nunneried.
And then kills her
Okay.
father, and then
Oh,
she goes
dude.
crazy with grief and starts giving out flowers to everybody, and then she drowns hanging garlands of flowers over a branch over a brook. And then there's
Get
several
bodied.
flowers like at the end, like the last thing we see is that the places where Ophelia went in Pan's Labyrinth, flowers will bloom in those places. I think that's kind of a nod to Ophelia in Hamlet potentially.
Yeah.
But I think
Lot of
because they
nods.
gave that out, that now she gets to go and be the princess in the underworld and back to her throne because she did the right ethical thing in sparing her brother, even though it opened this kingdom up to her and gave her power. She still rejected it because she was herself good. So anyway, because they gave us the out, it wasn't a huge impact as far as me making me cry. I'm saving that high score for one that makes me actually cry.
Okay.
For science realism, I gave it a 7. I don't know if you could really take points away from it, but the stitching was one thing. The penicillin, I think, was fine. I think they got all that right. It was definitely penicillin, and if it was 1944, I unless there's something I don't know, but that was kind of the OG, and it was kind of coming into prominence around those times. So, they would have had access to it. I guess it's really mostly the stitches, and it's not really a science-y movie, So
Not at least half of it. At least half of it is very
half
like
of it's yeah.
doesn't
What
care
really
about the
lost to
science.
science realism was the fairies. Obviously, it gets a pass on all fantastical elements, but
yeah, and Mitch McConnell. My story I got at a 4. Similar reasons. I don't feel like it was necessarily. I argued about myself about potentially tacking that up because I do really like some of the characters. I do think the Captain Vidal character is very interesting. But yeah, not super heavy on the plot side. And some of the characters other than Vidal are kind of a little binary, right? They're just either good, and even Vidal is evil, and that I like characters that have a little bit more contrast to them. Rewatchability, I also have it a 4. It's a very fun watch. It's just, to be honest, the foreign language side of it is going to make it something that does make it a little bit more exhausting to watch. Even though I really appreciate this specifically for the fact that you have to fully pay attention. You can't really be distracted. You can't be on your phone on the foreign language side of it. But the movie itself is not something that is going to be one I'm going back to every year probably. Fun side of it is 7. I love the costumes. I love the makeup and the design and the special effects and all of that. The world building of it, the fact that it feels so close, right? That she can be in her bedroom, draw the chalk, and then she's in another universe essentially. That idea is very fun. So I really like that mysticism side of it. Emotional impact, I have it a 6. Yeah, not anything that's going to make me cry, but definitely, some scenes and some characters that move you, that really can put you into their struggle and what they're feeling at the time. And then the filmmaking craft, I have it a 6. Some really solid things. Probably one of Guillermo del Toro's best. But it's just honestly, we're getting to the point with this list where I'm like looking down at these movies and I'm like, every single one of them are great. So we're probably going to have to start getting a little bit tighter on our ratings. And so for that reason, it's at a 6.
All
So
right.
yeah, so that moves us to 26 and 27 respectively for our points on this. So we're right around the same spot.
Cool.
Okay, moving on. If this might date this episode, but I'll do it anyway. We just hit 10,000 followers on Instagram. Thank you guys for doing that. And we put out a little thank you post. Our 10,000th follower, we let him choose the next movie. So was it Ryan?
It's Ryan.
Ryan, shout out Ryan. If you're watching, thank you for being our 10,000th follower. Thank you for listening this far. We know you have. And thank you for choosing the next movie, which is Mel Gibson's Hacksaw Ridge.
All right.
Andrew
I did not realize it
Garfield.
was
It is Mel Gibson, based on a true story. So we'll see. Maybe this could be the one that ticks up on Matt's emotional impact scale. But
I hear good things.
all right. Well,
this will be our first military movie as well.
this will be our first military movie. It felt weird putting it before Saving Private Ryan. It's still out there. I don't know what we're waiting on, but it's going to be there.
Save it for last.
It'll still
man.
be there. No, maybe we'll do like Veterans Day or something like that. It was
Yeah.
in like in November.
It'll be
right.
topical.
It'll be topical. We'll make it topical, and we'll make it a big event. But yeah, guys, if you're still watching, bienvenidos. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Tell us what we missed, what your favorite Mitch McConnell moment was in this episode, and what other famous politicians would be a good monster in a Guillermo del Toro movie. So yeah, Hacksaw Ridge. You guys got 1 week to watch it. We'll see you back here on the movie list.
See you guys.